Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Third Half Podcast by the FCS Live team. I'm Gerard along with Gerard Iscani, your host for tonight. This episode is presented by Ally Marketing and the Pod Escape Room. And Gerard, we were talking about it earlier. We have a jam-packed schedule of things we're trying to talk about tonight.
Yeah, they need to keep us on the clock. Otherwise, it'll be a 3-hour show.
3-hour show, and we've almost done that before. If you count the one where we went live but didn't actually go live and had to redo the 20 minutes, that might count. But we have two special guests for you guys tonight. The first one, I'm not going to tell you about yet because I want to give you a preview of the second one. Someone from the Columbus futsal team is coming up later on the show around 9:30. But first, it is our pleasure to welcome from Innovation City, Luan Tufani. Luan, thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for having me.
We're so excited to have you here and be able to chat with you about your experience in the tour and innovation, and as well as looking forward to the future for Innovation City, coming into the FCS next year. I know you and Gerard got a little chance to get acclimated while we were getting things set up here. So the first question, you want to take the first question?
Yeah, first question.
Gerard,
look, we need to
question.
start here. Tell us about your background in futsal.
Yes, so I am originally from Brazil, and it was probably the first sport that I played, even before playing outdoors. Grew up in the city in São Paulo, and it's different there than here. Your schools are not as big, and the schools will have like a little futsal court, but will not have a full field. So mostly is what we play, from a young age, and then again, kind of moved up to the field and all that. But yeah, been playing for a long time.
So did you say you grew up in Sao Paulo?
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. And schools were smaller. Was futsal like a part of school life in the way that, like, say, basketball or outdoor soccer is in
100%.
the States?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't know, like in here, right? Like even in high school and stuff, you play outdoors. That's the sport.
Yeah.
In Brazil, or at least in Sao Paulo, I want to say most of the schools don't have like an outdoor program. They'll just have a futsal program.
Just futsal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. And so that's, if it's a primary sport, that's probably one of the reasons why. I know I've heard like the culture of Brazil in certain places in Brazil, it's like, it's street soccer. It's like you're just playing like as you're growing up. Like this is just a part of how you relate to friends and everything. Like, was that your experience, that like street soccer was like a huge part of growing up?
Oh, 100%. It's funny because I grew up on a road that, now looking back, like it's kind of slanted, a little bit of a hill, not too much, but
yeah.
And, we used to play during summer vacations almost every day in that street. And going back, I'm like, how did we do it? But
wow,
we definitely did it. And yeah, it's very much a thing.
Was it better to go uphill or downhill?
It's honestly, because it wasn't like super steep, it's probably easier uphill because you have a little more control.
Mm-hmm.
The ball doesn't get you far ahead of you, but
it comes back to you when you take too big of a touch. It comes back.
Exactly. Oh, and you have to factor in also the sidewalk, right? Like all kinds of sidewalks, drops, and stuff. And we played through it all. It was fun times. Definitely different times, but it was fun.
That's really cool. So background from Sao Paulo. I think you guys talked a little bit before coming on air about your background in soccer as well. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that, kind of maybe like complete this picture for us about your history in soccer, and maybe even well, this is probably a totally separate question. I'll say that for later. Tell us about your soccer experience.
Yeah. So I grew up playing futsal a lot. Never really play like in the more professional sense in Brazil, because down there, even from a young age, they have like these clubs that you play through the federation. I never really did that. I was more of like a pickup kind of guy. Like I liked playing with friends and stuff. And almost prefer like the more street version of futsal than the actual like super tactical and all that. But then I can't remember exactly what age I started playing outdoors, but I did play some of that in Brazil, and then um, ended up playing in college here in the States. I played at Malone University
Okay.
in Canton. So
So was that like the point when you moved to the States or around college time?
well,
Or
yeah, I did a year of high school as an exchange student,
Mm-hmm.
but that was in California, San Bernardino, and then went back, finished school there, did college for a semester, and then came to the States, and then been here ever since.
So it kind of sounds
Pretty
like
much.
your experience in Brazil was mostly futsal, and your
Uh,
experience in the States is mostly soccer.
yeah,
Is that
that is
about
fair
right?
to say. Mhm.
How do you think, like right now, where do you stand as far as like what are you most passionate about and what do you want to play?
I mean, down to the wire, I do enjoy both a lot, but like for the past almost 15 years that I've been here,
Mhm.
like it was the only option for the most of those years was outdoors. So that's where I kind of got heavily involved and whatnot. But every time futsal was brought up, I try to join in
Mhm.
just to uh,
wow,
kind of
that's awesome. I mean, I think it was
figure
very
something out.
clear very early on. I mean, that
Mhm.
first game, you guys were the first ones in the tour to play that 9 a.m. game bright and early on a Saturday morning in June. It was very obvious early on your comfortability
Mhm.
playing futsal, like even just by the way you receive the ball to sole your foot. Like it's very like someone like you, it's like this is just what you do. But people that grow up in the United States and like are like futsal is kind of a training tool. It's not really like a main thing. It's like
Yes.
you see a lot. I mean, you could look at a lot of players that played in the tour, and probably less than half receive the ball at the sole of their foot. Like
Yeah.
when you see that, you're like, oh, and then he's got some control. And like, okay,
Mhm.
this guy, he has some experience,
Yeah, it's ingrained in us for sure.
Yeah.
Which, when you play outdoors, is not the best thing, but yeah,
So, getting this
can't stop.
opportunity to play in the tour, playing against teams like Cleveland State, college kids coming in, and, they don't get a lot of opportunity to play, kind of like what you're just talking about. What did that mean for you to be able to have this opportunity?
Oh man, I always love any opportunity to play futsal. Like I said, like I miss dearly playing like often, and so I'll take any opportunity to play. Even like um, with Innovation City, I know some of the people, but I didn't know
Mhm.
like everybody. And Brendan, that's my connection. And then he told me about it. I was like, yeah, like if I can, for sure, I'll be there. And so yeah, it was special. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Even though
That was
my
going to be my next
body.
question, actually, about your connection to innovation. So, how did that connection happen?
It was through Brendan. So I don't know how many years it's been now, but Brendan, we got connected out with outdoors. I helped run a team out of Brimfield/Kent called GFS, German Family Society, is a German club, and he was looking for a place to play. I have no idea how many years ago, but it's quite a few years ago. So he started playing with us, and we've been playing for years and years. And then he brought it up that he, was starting a futsal team and all that, and that's kind of how I got connected there.
That's really cool.
Yeah, you build it and they come.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's one of the things. So, Brandon, when we interviewed him the first time, he said that the expectation for innovation next season was to be in the final. So, I didn't really know what to
Okay.
expect seeing you all. And then,
Me
seeing the
neither.
talent. Yeah, you
I
all
didn't
brought
know
the
who was gonna
talent.
show up.
I
Yeah.
know. And, first event that y'all come to, you show up and you make the final. What is it that you think was enabling you all to be successful?
Oh man. I mean, even though as a team as a whole, like we were probably the most inexperienced, I would say. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, maybe, but the people were coachable, and they were hungry to play. And if you put in the effort, because it's a small pitch, that you can make it hard for
Mm-hmm.
even for more experienced teams. So I think that plus, we had some great goalkeeping in a few games that really made a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Question from the chat from Luke Miller. Do you plan to continue to play with Innovation through to the season next year?
I would love to. Yeah. I
Awesome.
just gotta see
At
if life
Brandon
will
Abolish in the chat. No,
allow
I'm just
me.
kidding.
Oh no,
No,
yeah. We've been
Brandon says
talking.
fresh out of college, 6 whole years fresh out of college.
6 years.
That's what Brandon says. Wow. Yeah, so I'm curious about a little bit more about your experience playing in the tour. So obviously this is Innovation City's first, action in any kind of FCS.
I
This
think
is
it was the
your
first game as a team.
yeah,
altogether.
first
It was
game as a
definitely-
team.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean I know it was just a month or two ago that we were talking with Brandon on here, and he's like, this is how many guys we have come out to the tryouts, and so so tell me about just what the experience was like for you, not only getting a chance to play futsal again, maybe in a more competitive and organized format than you have in the States, but also what it was like just to be out there with those guys and have your first go at it.
I mean, it was fun. Like it was a lot of fun. Like I said, like everyone on the team had a great attitude. Um, very coachable. Once they realized that I've played for a while, they would come in like, okay, like where do you want me, kind of thing. And for the most part, everybody cooperated and did well. So I think it was fun, and making to the finals and all that. That was unexpected, but
Yeah, I was gonna
rewarding,
say
if
when
you will.
I had a chance to talk with you at the end of after everything was done, you mentioned just the unexpected nature of getting to the finals, and I'd heard that from some of your teammates as well. Looks like we lost Luan just for a second. Oh, he's coming back. There he is. Did you hear me, or do I need to repeat? Okay. Hang on one second. Looks like we're having some connection issues here. I'm going to reconnect. Go ahead and try speaking again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you back. Okay, good. So I don't know how much of the question you heard me ask, but I had a chance to interview you after, the whole tournament was done, and you mentioned about how it being an unexpected result getting to the final, and I had heard some of that chatter from your team throughout, the day. So what was that like for you guys?
I mean, we come in. I know we've had a few practices, but very new team. Most people brand new to futsal. So going in, like we didn't have super high expectations of ourselves, just because we were realistic, right?
Yeah.
So it was surprising that we were able to kind of pick it up, and I feel like even if you watch back, the playing as a team got better and better as each game went by. I think people kind of got the little bit of the taste of how the game flows, and kind of adapted to, okay, like this is kind of what we have to do. So yeah, it was definitely not something we were expecting, but very glad it happened.
Yeah.
Again, it was fun.
Brandon Bolish said the signing bonus is going to be a huge Chipotle gift card. So
look
I'm
at
expecting something at
Can't
least
turn
this
that
big.
down, right?
Yeah, at least this big. What were you thinking when you guys conceded in the first 10 seconds of the tour?
Oh, dude, I think everybody just really thought that was gonna go downhill from there.
Oh, my
like, oh boy,
goodness.
here we go. But yeah, thankfully
It
didn't go that way. Yes,
No,
yes.
it didn't. It didn't at all. Wow. Yeah, I know when that happened, I was like, oh no, that was very quick. I don't know.
Like immediately after the whistle blew, it's like, oh.
I don't think
we're
how did you
basically
feel?
still starting the
yeah,
stream,
like we're still
like we're
starting.
still figuring it out, and I'm trying to talk, and oh my goodness. Yeah, so, but yeah, you guys came out and
funny.
able to make it to the final.
What when that happens, that might be the quickest goal we've seen in FCS. Like of all of the matches that we've
breaking
done,
records from
breaking records. Like, how did you all respond to that?
Man, I mean, I think people truly like realize, hey, like we came at this too slow, and let's kind of wake up and go from there.
Yeah.
And it took a little longer to get the
Yeah.
second one in. So
Sure.
I think even though in the back of our minds, everybody thought like, "Oh crap!" I think the response was better than "Oh crap,"
Yeah.
like on the field actually.
Brandon was he was in net saying, "I thought that was going to be a clean 15-1 loss." That's what he just put in the chat, and that's coming from him. I mean, I know he was in net from there, but that's what he said.
Yes.
If you had to pick out your favorite moment of the experience in the tour, what would you say it is?
Outside of playing or like anything?
Just
Anything,
anything.
yeah, anything.
I mean, if it's just the fact that you played, or if there was like a moment that was like, oh, this was like just like a really unique and fun moment.
Yeah, I mean, playing is definitely like the highlight, but like within playing, I think uh, beating Lansing City on overtime was the highlight.
Yeah,
It was like
that was an
legs
exciting
were
one. Huh?
given out. I didn't even know there was gonna be overtime. I thought the game was done. I was, saying good game to people, and then it was like, oh, there is another. And
Yeah.
then somehow we managed to pull a goal and win that thing. That was
Wow,
fun.
that's awesome. Got any
Yeah,
final
no,
questions?
I think that was a huge game for Chicago House coming in, and then same thing for you all, like circling Lansing City on the map. Why was the Lansing City game like so important for you all?
Well, it was definitely the game that got us, through the next spot. But also, if I had to reassess, like from all the teams that were on the tour, like yes, I mean Lansing was a little younger, but
Mm-hmm.
I would say holistically they might have been the best team out
Mm-hmm.
there.
Yeah,
I know Columbus. I mean, been around forever. They're very good. Obviously ended up winning the whole thing, and they're more experienced. But I think it's collectively Lansing was probably the toughest opponent, and the fact that we held down and we lucked out obviously with a few errors there in the beginning, but yeah, winning that game was massive,
yeah,
and probably gave us confidence
Mm-hmm.
going into
yeah,
the next round there as well.
yeah, yeah. We'll have a chance to talk a little bit more about Lansing later. I do think that I would agree with your statement that I think on paper Lansing was probably the best team that was there,
Yeah,
but fifth. That's what
I
they came
know.
in.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the beauty of soccer or futsal, right? Like it's the one game that truly doesn't matter if one team is much better than the other, and on paper anything can happen.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, as we wrap up the time with you, Luan, I did get some insider information that there's another team in the Akron area you used to play for. It wasn't I don't know if it was futsal or not. Was it futsal?
If you
The
say the
Vulcans.
name, I'll tell you. Yes, if you're meaning the Vulcans, yes, it was futsal.
Yeah. So how long has it been since you stepped on the floor as a Vulcan?
Oh man, COVID ended it all, so it had to
Okay.
be mid 2020. So it's
Gotcha. So about 5 years.
probably the last time that
Yeah.
I played.
Yeah. That's awesome. Any last questions? You want to take the
yeah,
last question?
we got a question from the chat. I'll save the last question. It'll be quick, I promise.
Okay.
Yeah.
But from the chat, who's your favorite futsal player?
Oh, I mean, I don't think you cannot say Falcao.
Mm.
I mean, what he can do with the ball is just, yeah, it's unhuman.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
Well, speaking of things,
Actual last
unhuman.
question.
Yeah, actual last question.
right.
Look, we know that there are many things on the menu at Chipotle that are fantastic, but
Oh.
with your signing bonus, that
Right.
Brandon Bausch, right? What are you
Big
getting at
signing
Chipotle?
bonus.
What's your order?
Oh, so fun fact, my wife worked at Chipotle for 6 years. So
Okay.
my go-to at Chipotle is always a bowl with brown rice, pinto beans, double chicken. If they have vinaigrette, I'll add vinaigrette to the bowl. I'll get tomato on the side so I can drain some of the water that comes with it. And then
Or play.
I like the
Nice.
queso and guac.
Solid.
Nice. Yeah,
That'll
that's a
be
pretty
it.
good order.
There it is. Brandon, I hope you wrote it down.
Yeah. Weekly deliveries.
That's funny.
Chipotle for a
man.
year. Ladies and gentlemen, Luan Tufani of Innovation City, thank you so much for joining us. We really
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
you, Luan.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
thank you
betcha.
for having me.
We're going to take a quick break, and coming up after the break, we have a little reality check for all the teams that came to the tour. What was it like for them? Part one, and then in the middle of that, we welcome our second special guest. So that's on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere.
Committing a crime so you can try to escape from prison. Bad idea. Going to the pod escape room to play an escape game with your friends. Great idea. Test your skill as an astronaut in outer space. Find Santa in Save Christmas. Or take a vacation to an abandoned island. Just don't get stuck there. The Pod Escape Room. Learn more at thepodlansing.com.
half. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the third half. We were muted there just for a second. So that was like
dry run.
It was
Test
dry run.
run.
It was like what happened for the whole first 10 minutes.
Yeah, that was great
tour.
practice. I mean,
You
we
were
could
just
do that
talking.
again, and we could be on video.
We could be
so
on
they
video.
can't hear us, and it'll be just practice
That'd be
for us.
perfect.
They could watch. Get the
Welcome back
B-roll.
to the third half, presented by Ally Marketing and the Pod Escape Room. We just got done with an awesome session with Luan Tufani of Innovation City. If you missed that, go back, take a listen. It was great to hear from him. Brazilian Sao Paulo native, grew up playing futsal, street soccer, and we saw his talent on the court in the weekend.
Yeah, it was really clear. I mean, I think it was just a couple of minutes into the game, we were already saying his name, like, oh, he's somebody to watch out for. And it wasn't just the basics of futsal. It was really like some of the intricacies of understanding the positioning and the movement. He was creating opportunities for his team. So, the knowledge and the experience is so deep, and he showed that all day.
And we will talk more about innovation specifically in a little bit. First, it's the reality check of the teams in the tour, starting with what I would call the exploring teams, the two teams that, we're kind of we haven't really seen much before in the futsal scene. That would be Grace Futsal and CSU. What was your evaluation of their play?
I was impressed by what they brought to the table, because a lot of my experience with new teams to futsal, they have been blown out in some of these competitive settings, and they played some pretty competitive games, and there were no extreme blowouts like we saw from a team like Midwest last year in the FCS. And so that says a lot. That says a lot not only about how they showed up over the weekend, but it also showed how they prepare.
Mm-hmm. And, these two teams, obviously, first time they're getting any kind of FCS look. I think it was pretty clear that the futsal experience level was lower. The talent level was lower. But like you mentioned, I mean, they definitely, there weren't any crazy blowouts. You said you were, I don't know if you said impressed or what word you just used. I really wasn't as much. I don't really feel like it's that much of a feat to maybe it's more than I think to not get 7 or 8 goals on you like have seen, but it just the when you watch the games, you could tell that the level was still pretty low. But it doesn't mean that they weren't working hard. It doesn't mean that they weren't able to defend and put something together. There were some struggles logistically with CSU. We didn't really get a lot of their player information and numbers, and so we weren't really able to kind of give them proper recognition, which is one of the things that comes into is a team able to take a step, sometime to go to the next level and participate in a full-time league. What's your evaluation of that?
So not knowing a lot about these teams and kind of their history with futsal, going into the tournament, I really expected nothing out of them at all. And so when I say impressed, I don't mean impressed in the way of wow, they were really standouts, the way Luan impressed us, right? But what I mean by impressed when I say that for those teams is I was impressed compared to what I expected, even based on the fact that they couldn't even get their numbers straight.
Yeah.
The fact that they didn't even have the right kits to share amongst the team, and they had to swap jerseys throughout the game. Our statisticians were keeping track of their players by their shoes and by special features, like somebody was wearing glasses. So that's how we knew if they had an assist or a goal. And when you compare that, that level of kind of what
preparedness
that level of preparation with what they did on the court, it showed there's a huge disparity. They were at least able to stay in the games and create competitive games. Right. So there were no blowouts the entire day. And when you walk away from that tournament with two teams that probably don't play competitively much at all, if ever, they might not ever get to play competitively. For me, I think that's so special of what this tour does, is it gives people that opportunity. Like Luan, when's the last time Luan got to play competitively? This is really special for these teams, Grace and Cleveland State, to be able to do that.
Yeah, and CSU, they did make it to the knockout rounds as well. It was, I do think that group was pretty weak with them and Grace, and then Jinga had to. Jinga had, played those two. They had two pretty handle wins. Like you said, there wasn't really a blowout. But, Jenga handled those teams pretty well. When CSU was in the semifinal, Columbus handled them very well. And they actually got through only on 1 point, and it was a goal differential. They tied with Grace, and then both teams lost to the Columbus. Both teams lost to Jenga, and then they got through because they let in, less goals.
So Columbus, we just got done talking about Lansing City was on paper the best team. And, we'll talk more about them and the talent that they brought there. But Columbus beat Lansing City 3-1. And Columbus beat Cleveland State 4-1.
But they were totally different games if you watch.
I agree.
If you watch
I agree. But
one was a snoozer and one wasn't.
As many goals as we see in futsal and how the goals come pouring in, the first goal of the tournament was within the first 10 seconds.
It was.
10 seconds. And we saw a goal because innovation wasn't ready. And we saw Cleveland State going against Columbus, and they only gave up 4 goals.
But it wasn't competitive.
In 40 minutes?
It wasn't competitive.
4 goals!
It just wasn't competitive. It was not an exciting game to watch. It wasn't competitive. Think about it. If you're Columbus, do you say, okay, we can handle this one, and we're going to rest, and we're going to not,
they
for
did.
the final?
Yeah, it was smart.
But
still,
that's my take.
If I'm Cleveland State, I'm walking away from the tournament with that's a W. That's a W for me and my organization as Cleveland State because we came against Columbus, who has a legacy of being a solid futsal club, Lansing City, the mecca of futsal in the United States with the arena they have here and all of the time and attention that goes into futsal here in Lansing. And then Innovation, who, they got players from the Akron Vulcans, so they got some legacy there too.
Yeah.
I'm walking away with that program being like, oh, wow, we can compete. Now, you might watch that and think not, but the score line is the score line. It's 4-1. I mean, Midwest in the FCS last year, not a single match they played.
These are short games.
They are.
And they have a game afterwards that matters more.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, but the fact of the matter is Grace and CSU both showed up better than Midwest did. And Midwest played in the FCS for the entire year.
Yeah.
So it's not just a
very
one-day
low
thing.
bar.
It is a low bar.
We got a few more teams to get to. Let's move on. We were talking about we had just had a chance to talk to Luan. Let's talk about Innovation for a moment. They were even surprising to themselves the result that they got. And the question is, how did it happen? How did they get there? What was the pathway that what led them to getting to the point where they were able to make it to the final? So
Luan was great, but one of the things we talked about a lot on the stream was Nick Willem. Hopefully I'm saying that name right. He was outstanding in goal. He did a really fantastic job in goal.
I thought Foster was really good.
Foster was really good too.
He had good performance as well.
I was just really impressed by Willem. In that second game, he played the entire game. And that was against Lansing City, and I think that's why they won that match. I know there's some other factors that go into it, but there were so many opportunities on goal. He had, in that match, I'd have to pull it up and look at the exact number of saves, but he had a lot of saves and a lot of great saves. Those are some really, really great shots. We talked about that, wow, top shelf, top corner, great shot, but save,
Yeah.
And if he's not making those saves, they don't win that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he was a standout performer as well, and I thought Foster played well in goal. I know they kind of split a little bit. Brandon had his struggles. I know he would admit that as well in goal. It's when it comes to Innovation, it's I think it's amazing that they made it there. I think it's like he's talking about the confidence that they got from the winning of those games, and particularly the Lansing City game, the overtime. It's just so cool to be at home, being your first one, and to ride that and get there. The thing I do have to say is the reality is the Lansing City game, there was goalkeeper mistakes that led to 2 goals, and they won by 1 in overtime. In the semifinal against Jenga, there was goalkeeper and defensive mistakes that led to 2 goals, and they won by 1. And it's you have to give credit, and like I mentioned at first, it's a really exciting thing and really cool they did that. But at the same time, it's 2 key matchups that if you don't have a goalkeeper and defender give you a goal twice, you don't make it there. And I just think that's the reality of what it is.
I mean, it's true, but they only let in 3 goals against Lansing City, who had the 3 best players, bar none, in the whole tour. The 3 best players.
Maybe.
You disagree?
I
You
don't-
don't think those are the
well,
3 best players?
we could
2 from the U.S. national team, and then Rafael Hernandez? You have those 3 players on one team, and they only score 3 goals against Innovation?
It was
You can-
definitely surprising.
You can blame the win on the first 2 goals that they let in that were incredible mistakes, and they just can't be made. And we know why. We have a little bit of understanding of why. You know, one of the things going from the court in Lansing City, where there's a singular line for the penalty area, going to this tour, there's so many lines on the floor that Raziel, you know, there was some confusion. And he came out and he handled the ball, and he gave up a couple of goals really quick.
Yeah. I just want to say one thing real quick. We're going to talk about Lansing City later.
Okay,
but
innovation.
I want to, well, yes, but I just want to say something real quick with Raziel. Like, I think he's in a very important moment of like how he responds to this, and we'll talk more about that later. But I didn't want his name to be mentioned without like realizing that like I didn't want. I know he made mistakes, and I didn't want him to be dogged on.
Oh no,
and which is not what we're doing.
He's new to futsal,
but I just
too.
wanted to make sure that it's like, hey, this is a guy who. This is a really key moment, and sometimes amazing players can be birthed out of moments like this.
Back to innovation.
Back to innovation.
Back to innovation. They only gave up 3 goals.
This is true.
Against one of the most dominant offensive teams in the entire FCS. So Lansing City was one of the top goal-scoring teams in all of FCS, and they brought a lot of their firepower, and they brought reinforcements. Like, when I saw the lineup that they brought out, I was like, wow. This is going to be embarrassing to these other teams. That's what I was thinking. Yeah. And so that's why I was impressed with these other teams that showed up. I know that they didn't end up playing Grace or Cleveland State, but the fact that all of the matches were so level and you will say they're not competitive, but the scoreline was competitive. So we'll say that. The scoreline was competitive for all of these matches when you had 50% of the starting lineup for Lansing City was from the U.S. national team. Like, that's blowing my mind, the level of talent on that court, and those matches were competitive for the score line.
Yeah.
That says a lot about innovation right there. Yeah. The fact that they only gave up 3 goals. So we can, say whatever we want, how they got their 4 goals, but they only gave up 3, and 2 of the people that played the majority of the time were from the U.S. national team.
Yeah. Well, I do think it is much easier to not give up goals than it is to score goals.
That's true.
That was a posture I think they took for a lot of the night, was playing the zone diamond, kind of packing it in and looking for counter opportunities. And they were able to get those against both Lansing and Jinga, which Jinga, that's the next team I want to mention here before we get to our next guest, which is super exciting. But Jinga's play and their result in tournament, what did you think about it?
Somebody's name that I say a lot, it's your favorite name to say, right? Shota Takabatake. It's just such a fun name. Look, if you're at home right now, just practice with us. How do you say it?
Takabatake.
It just rolls off the tongue. Just practice. Look, he had 4 goals, right? 3 in the round robin, 1 in the playoffs, and to see his continued development, very similar to somebody like Raziel. He's new to futsal, right? And that's the difference when you look at somebody like Luan, who grew up playing futsal his whole life, and now we have players like Shota that is brand new to the sport. He just started playing this year, and January was his first time playing with Jinga. We got to see him in the FCS, and to see his growth over the last 6 months has been amazing. And so for me, that was really a standout moment to see that continued impact and the continued growth from him.
Yeah, and he was real excited to be there. I mean, every time he had a chance on goal, he's looking back to his teammates. He's looking at the cameras and everything. That was pretty fun. You could tell that Jinga was having a good time, particularly in the group stage games. And that leads me to this question. Agree or disagree? This is the question. Do you agree or disagree that an easier group stage for Jinga did not prepare them for the semifinal? Agree or disagree?
I disagree.
Disagree.
Yeah, I disagree. I think it doesn't matter. And I think there's only one factor that was really the only differentiator and the reason they didn't win.
And that was?
Why do you think?
Why do I think?
Why do you think? I said it many times.
I think
go back and watch the tape.
I think there was goalkeeper and defensive mistakes. Do you agree with that?
Look, but when you take the last tour, they had a couple of players that were new to their team.
Yeah.
And they brought creative element, but they also brought just composure in the defensive area. And Wes Rasdorf is not a goalie. He's gotten better. He has.
Yeah.
But he only lasted, to go back and to compare, he only lasted a couple of minutes against Lansing City before he let in 3 goals.
Yeah.
And how many goals did Innovation give up in 40 minutes with the running clock against Lansing City?
Yeah.
3 goals.
Yeah.
Right? And so when you think about that comparison, and no offense to Rasdorf, like, he's not a goalkeeper. So anything we talk about, like, he's learning the position, but he's not ready to win a title of the SCS Tour as a goalkeeper for Jenga, and that showed. And that for me was the biggest factor. When I saw that he was going to be the goalie, I was like, well, they were the favorites to win this tour, but I don't see how they can. And that was my first instinct when I saw that Corey Weisenhut's not going to be there. Even Yaya. Like, Yaya's not a great goalie, but he's solid back there. Like that, he did a solid job against Midwest in the playoffs. But I'm forgetting that his name is like Ryoto was the guy here for the tour.
Oh, yeah.
He was phenomenal in goal. Like, he was really, really solid. If they can find a way to bring him back, I think they have the makings of a really strong team. Another player, Kai Yamazaki, we talked about him a lot.
Yeah, we did.
He's really solid, and he's somebody that's supposed to play with them this upcoming season, so I'm excited to watch him.
Did you say that before you saw Rasdorf as goalkeeper, you thought Jenga was the favorite to win?
Yeah.
And you thought that they were the favorite? I thought you were talking all about Lansing City's
squad.
squad.
I was.
So
but
you didn't think they were the favorite to win?
I didn't think they were their favorite to win.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like the stuff that you said before was like really pointed to that. But we'll talk more about that.
We'll talk more about Lansing City. I'll
Yeah.
tell you why, and I think it's exactly what played out. Like I think that's some of the factors. And I didn't know that they had Diego. I didn't know that he was going to be on their roster.
Gotcha.
So going into it, I knew some of the people that weren't going to be there, like Luciano Cernuda. I knew he's not going to be there.
Yeah.
And so when you factor in some of those things, and I knew Rafa Hernandez was going to be there, and integrating him into the team. And in a lot of ways, it played out how I thought it would because he's so ball dominant. Jeremy Kleppel's so ball dominant. There's only one ball. So, like, what happens? And that's some of the challenges that when we talk about Lansing City, we can get into deeper.
Well, that's going to be coming up in a little while. But first, on the other side of the break, we get to bring in a very special guest who is, you could say a new face, but an old new face. Not because he's old. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, new to us.
Digging myself a deeper hole here. Dante Garcia of Columbus Futsal is going to be joining us on the other side of the break. If you got any questions for him, put them in the chat. And don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this.
Committing a crime so you can try to escape from prison. Bad idea. Going to the pod escape room to play an escape game with your friends. Great idea. Test your skill as an astronaut in outer space. Find Santa in Save Christmas. Or take a vacation to an abandoned island. Just don't get stuck there. The Pod Escape Room. Learn more at thepodlansing.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Third Half podcast presented by Ally Marketing and the Pod Escape Room. Jared Kleppel, Gerard Ascani. Hey, we just had two segments of our show. The first one, Luan Tufani of Innovation City joined us. It was an amazing chat. And then we were able to talk about 4 of the 6 teams. After that, the recap of kind of, what was the reality check for them? Where are they at right now? Mm-hmm. And what were your thoughts? What were my thoughts? We had some that didn't go together, but that's super exciting, and we'll maybe some more later on. But for now, we get to welcome in our second special guest of the night from Columbus Futsal. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Dante Garcia. Dante, thank you so much for jumping on the show tonight.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, we're so pumped to get you on the show, Dante. I know there was more than one person excited in like our production team that has been a part of futsal for a while, seeing Columbus back in action in Akron. We were super excited to see you guys. What was it like to get back on the court with wearing that Columbus jersey with those guys?
I felt great, man. It was a really good experience, anytime we can play together and, with a group of people, like-minded people who are, there to grow the game, it makes it worth it. Every bit of it worth it. So
that's really cool.
Great.
I know Gerard over here to my left is bubbling with questions as always.
Well, look, the first one, I need to know, there are so many trophies behind you. Is one of those from the tour, and are all of those from Columbus Futsal?
Yes, so all of these are from Columbus Futsal.
Wow.
The one in the middle is from the tour. I just stuck it up there tonight just for you guys.
Nice. But, there it
is.
is.
We've got a lot of accomplishments, for all the hard work that all the people in our community have, strung together over the years to accomplish. And I mean, you see it, the proof is in the pudding right there behind you. We like to win. Winning's important. It's winning isn't everything, but it's also fun, but it is important to us, So we try to, always wherever we go compete, make sure that we're not only good sports, but we're there to I guess the way I want to put it is everyone wants to beat us. That's kind of how it is. I kind of like that.
For some of the fans like myself who have heard a lot about Columbus Futsal but don't really know, could you introduce us to Columbus Futsal? Tell us a little bit about the history.
Yeah, absolutely. So Columbus Futsal started as a pickup soccer group back in 2006. Maybe a couple years even before that. We just didn't really have a name for it. But it was just a group of buddies and myself that we would just get together and play every Friday night. We called it Futsal Friday Night under the lights from 8 to 10 p.m. And, I was about 16 years old and, playing with my dad had a college team that he was training basically. And he's like, futsal is the fastest way to develop soccer players, and these guys needed the extra touches over the summer, and that's how I got to know them. There's a group of Persian guys. So these guys could ball. I mean, it was amazing. They said, oh, we played like this back in our home country, and then one thing leads to another, and next thing you know, the Brazilians start knocking on your door and they're obsessed with futsal. So, I get a call from a friend called Pablo Freitas, and there was a tournament that we were going to go to up in Akron back in, I think it was 2015. And this was our first experience taking youth teams to play in Akron. They got smacked. They lost 20-0. Never played futsal before.
Wow.
I'm doing the best I can to explain and teach to them,
Yeah.
And growing pains, right? Now we're beating teams 20-0, and but part of the process, I guess. But it was cool because my friend Brian, who was with me on the men's team that played up in Akron, they had an adult division that year, and they hadn't really done that before. But I think it was called the NPFL, National. I'm looking up at the little certificate I have up here from the Zago course. But the NPFL, they were doing something back in the day to promote, the men's game. And we're just like, yeah, let's throw a team in. And Pablo calls me up and he's like, hey, I've got these really good players. You got to try them out. I know like the tournament's a week away, but just give them a couple of training sessions or a scrimmage or something against your high school boys. And, I promise like we won't let you down. And I'm sure you guys have heard Junior Zanelato and those names around here and there. But those guys, they helped me start the men's side. And we went up to Akron and we kicked some butt. We ended up winning. We were regional champions. And then we went to nationals after that, got third place. And it was just a great experience. And it was something that we wanted to have always because we want our players to have something to aspire towards, and it's a good example for them. So, like, if you've never seen futsal and I'm trying to teach you how to play futsal and you're just a kid walking in from a soccer field or something, like you're like, what do you mean soul delay? What do you mean, balance move? What are all these things, So having a good example for them is always like our priority. So that's kind of why we continue with the men's team. We just go to these, either one-off tournaments or something. But we always try to play in front of our kids, So it being streamed online over the last weekend was great, because, a lot of kids were watching and, I come back home and one of the moms is telling me, you know, hey, my son was watching you. He said, you better run through the middle after you pass, you better kick off, And I was like, that's right, because I tell that kid that every day. I tell little Jameson that every day. So,
Wow.
you have to be a good example in what you say and do. You have to what you preach. You have to
Yeah.
practice what you preach, right? And it
Held
was really
accountable,
fun
man.
to kind of. Yeah, so here's the cool thing coming full circle, right? Like, yeah, accountability, right? But here's the full circle moment, right? Brian, my best friend who won in the tournament with me up in Akron, he I'm talking about back in 2015. He brought to my attention. He's like, "Man, we did this like so many years ago. Like, remember when we first started? We won in Akron too. This is
Yeah.
like a history repeating
Wow.
itself." And I got goosebumps just talking about it, But I'm like, I'm so happy and proud that we were able to, come out on top, and the way we just like pulled things together so kind of last minute and it, I guess over the years you've done it long enough, you can get organized quicker,
Mhm.
So I already knew what I wanted. I already had like my game model set up. We did 3 training sessions before we came to compete and we ended up winning. So it was pretty
Yeah.
great.
Wow.
And that's
Wow.
that's kind of the men's side of Columbus Futsal, but we also have the youth academy. We have the
Mhm.
Columbus Futsal League, that's been operating since 2015 as well. Local teams play, and in our academy, we go as far as Orlando or overseas. Some players go overseas to compete, and it's just been amazing what we've done here, starting from such a grassroots pickup thing to what it is today, like a professional
Mhm.
organization, and having so many kids in the Columbus area just be you know somebody who's played for CFA, or they know somebody who's played for CFA. Like, I'm looking at the rosters for the Crew Academy, and I just see all of our players there, and it's been great to see kids take what they've learned from CFA and just run with it. So I always have a saying, like, you can take the player out of CFA, but you can't take CFA out of the player. So that's something I always am really proud of.
Wow. Wow.
Well, I mean, I got more follow-ups after that. So you think about kind of like the bookend experience of how you all started and then where you all are now. It seems like there's been a huge gap. Like you just threw this men's team together, right, for this tour.
Yeah.
Why is there this gap for the men's team? Like where
Well,
have you all been?
to be completely honest, and I think it needs to be said, is there has to be an ROI. There has to be a return on investment. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times we are doing things behind the scenes on a nickel and dime budget. We're
Yep.
we're very much struggling, and this is kind of unfortunately the way it is with U.S. futsal right now,
Mm-hmm.
and futsal in America, right, is kind of like, I don't think it's getting the respect that it deserves, honestly. And I think that needs to change. And I think you guys are, in line with those goals. And that's why I'm even on the show tonight, because I believe in what you guys are doing. And I want to be a part of that as well, and just restructuring the whole player pathway to pro in the United
Mm-hmm.
States for futsal, and even creating these men's teams and doing it with the full integrity, right? I think that's important to say, because I know there's a lot of leagues out there that say they're doing futsal, or claim to be the top division or what have you, and it can be so much better than what it actually is. It just takes effort,
Mm-hmm.
and that integral piece, is like what you do behind the scenes. You can't necessarily have your respectfully, you can't have your commissioner playing in the league games and
Mm-hmm.
doing things like that. Everybody's got to have their role and do it well, you know? So, like, even for example, before on the first day of training, when I was talking to my players, just to kind of give you an example of what I mean by, like, you say you do what you say you do is what you do, right? Well, I told the players, like, listen, I don't know what I'm going to do this weekend. I'm either going to coach or I'm going to play. But if I play, I'll lead you as a captain, and we're equals on the field. Okay. I'm not gonna say, hey, you did something wrong, because you're gonna tell me I did something wrong, and it's just gonna
Mm-hmm.
be an argument, and it's not worth it. I'm not gonna be your coach. I'm gonna be your teammate, and I'm gonna lead you, and I'm gonna guide you to the best of my abilities, right? But if I step out of the field, right, and I'm gonna coach you, then you're gonna listen to everything I say,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna respect what I say, and you're gonna follow my lead. So I chose to play because I didn't know what to expect with the players, and I felt like that was the right thing to do. And my buddy Brian was also convincing me and encouraging me to step back out on the field, which is something that I haven't done, or on court, sorry. Which isn't something I have not done in quite some time, But I was excited to play with him, excited to be a part of things, and like have someone there who even a little bit believed in my playing ability, And I thought I played all right, it wasn't at my peak, but it was the main point was that I focused on what my role was,
Mm-hmm.
what I was supposed to do, And I knew as a player, like, hey, we're up a couple goals right now. I don't need to go try and do anything fancy or score or whatever. I'm just gonna kind of milk the clock, like I did in the final and things like that. I managed the game, and I led, I led. I came off the court when it was time to come off the court. I led by example, Every time we're in the locker room, I'm hydrating, I'm giving water to all my players and everything, making sure everybody's eating and taken care of, So, it was great. And
Yeah.
that's what futsal needs right now, is that integral piece, is like, hey, if you say you're gonna do this, then follow through on it and do a good job on it. And you'd be surprised what just buckling down and doing a good job, how far that can get you. And you guys have done an amazing job with the third half and all this. I love it. I tune in. I watch more than you guys think. Like, I'm excited to be on the show. So it's great. It's great. I'm just happy to be a part of it. So
That's cool. Well, we're really excited that you decided to join and you guys decided to come out and play in the tournament, and storm back onto the futsal scene with the win in Akron. And you mentioned about being a part of it. This was one of the other questions I wanted to talk to you about. Was in the interview that we had with you. You talked about you felt like the FCS was doing good things, and if I remember right, I think the quote was like, we want to be a part of it, right? Like that was exactly what you said.
yeah,
What does that look like? Like realistically, what do you see that looking like? Do you think, even to be as direct as to say, as what I put on the screen here, could Columbus Futsal join FCS as early as the 26-27 season, right? It's a very like direct and like time, orienting question. But what do you see as like the future for Columbus and your guys' interest in having a competitive men's side?
yeah, we're definitely interested. I mean, you could see kind of right there, like it has the potential to even continue. And obviously, with my experience, I think like what I was able to do in the short amount of time that I did and what we accomplished was like it's looking good.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to say like, oh yeah, we're coming next season or whatever, or we're not, but I would love to come next season and make it happen, or even this season, I guess is what I'm trying to say, this winter. If it's an option, if you guys will have us. But I mean, that would be awesome. It's going to be a commitment. It's going to have like the right pieces in line. Like I said, like we're going to have a manager, a coach, people working behind the scenes to make sure that it's a success, even if we have home games or we're traveling, that we have the things we need. And we've done it in the past. And so like, it's, it felt like it was nothing to us. It was just like clockwork. We're like, oh yeah, we're doing this again. All right, let's go. Melissa, my wife, she's the CEO, and she was like, I felt like for once in my life, she wasn't worried about what I'm doing. She kind of gave me the reins. It was like, go for it. She was the one who actually said, like, who sent me the text from Jake, like, hey, there's a men's tournament going on. And I was like, I had to double read the text. Like, wait, that's a text message from Jake. And she sent it to me because she's very like vague, right? She just forwarded me a screenshot of their conversation. It was like, hey, we're having this tournament. And I'm like, so does that mean we get to play? Does that mean we're bringing a men's team? Like, I got super stoked.
Wow.
So like, yeah, I would say, it's important to have this as a piece of Columbus futsal, not only for like, the kids in the community or in our CFA program, but in our academy, but it's also important to grow the sport of futsal. And that's, if that's another way I can do it, then heck yeah, let's go for it. So I'd love to be a part of the league you guys are running there, and make sure that we bring something great, and if not something extra, like the same level or higher, right? You always want the
Yeah.
same level or higher. So I think we can do that. So it's looking good.
That's awesome. We just had a comment in the chat saying, speaking from firsthand experience, Columbus's home game experiences and the environment were top notch. What can you say about the home environments you guys used to bring in?
Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that, because that was something we took a lot of pride in. Being in the thick of it, like, you don't, when you're just like setting up and you're putting the tape down on the court, you know what I mean? And you're making sure the guys are on time, and you're, cleaning the locker room after the
Yeah.
game, all this stuff, like, and then you just take a moment to sit back and rewatch the game. That's when you're like, that was amazing. That was just unreal. So like, going to our home games is like, it's like, I don't know. The only game that compares to what we can replicate was the first time I ever played at Lansing City against Lansing. You guys had like this huge gym and like all these fans, and the fans were even sitting behind us, and that scared me. I don't know why, but I had like, I was like, dang, like they're yelling at us, like they're into it. And I mean, you guys could pack the house. Like back in the day, I don't know what you guys did, but it was at like I think it was like at a church or something, or like a school gym or something.
Probably
I
the college
remember
gym,
like,
yeah.
I don't, I would, yeah, I think so, but it was like a big banner in the back, and no
Yeah.
one was sitting back there. I
Yeah.
don't know if you lay down the banner over there, but I just remember like you guys smoked us, but like just being there was like, I have to replicate that. You guys set the standard. Like I was
Wow.
like, we have to do a better job than them. You know what I mean? Like it's competitive. Like that's what you want, right? Like same level or higher. That's what I'm talking about. But like when you step into the like the first experience when you come to a Columbus futsal game, you're gonna never forget it. You're gonna enjoy it. There's gonna be the panda, mascot bouncing around, hitting the drums. There's gonna be fans cheering. There's gonna be people sweating on the sideline. There's gonna be like there's always like a good guy, and there's always a villain. We always like I try to, if I'm not like, 'cause I love announcing the games, but I can't do that. But like, I try to encourage the announcers. I try to encourage the announcers to come either coaching or playing or whatever. Usually I'm coaching, but back in the day, I used to do it all, right? So when you come to the game, you have to be ready for like a thriller always, because there's always going to be like the comeback story, or we're going to lose by 1 goal, or we're going to tie, you know what I mean? Or like something is always going to be there, that there's like that element of surprise, and that's something you can't miss out on. So you have to come to the game in real life to enjoy. And just, we have like over like 300 people at the gates every time, filling the seats, packed house always. And I don't know what it is, but Columbus futsal, the fans are like, they're hoping we come back, and like they are always ready to support us. And that's just the beauty of being in a soccer city like Columbus. They have the Columbus Crew, they have the Blue Jackets, they have Columbus Futsal, in Ohio State Buckeyes. Like this is fandom, this is a city full of fans that are ready to come and support you and cheer you on or try something new. Even the fans want to see, like, I never heard of futsal, let's go check it out. Like, you'll be surprised how many, like, just 100 people just coming to see a futsal game for the first time, and we're like, did you like it? Did you enjoy it? We get their feedback. They're like, it was amazing. So, like, just being there and being a part of the game, like, like Columbus Futsal is a competitive team, and like we always have that vibe, like everyone wants to beat us, and I always love that. And one time, I believe Jeremy Kleppel described us as a defensively stout team. And that's how we play, because every time we defend, every time we make a block, we're like, ooh, we get in your face about it. We're going to let you know, like, we're here, And so that's something like that the fans, if you don't go to the game, you don't know that, But when the fans and the team and everybody's cheering like that at the same time, that echoes, that sends good positive energy throughout the stadium, and it's just unreal. It's unmatching.
Wow.
You can't match it. So
I feel this like to my left here, this man right here. I feel this like overwhelming excitement and energy just like emanating from him.
So much.
And I feel like if the first time you guys have a game in Columbus, this man will be there knocking on the door 12 hours in advance. That's
we need to live stream there. That's what we need to do. We need to bring the whole crew there.
It's on me.
Yeah, FCS live experience
absolutely.
in Columbus. So, look, one of the biggest things that we do and why we even started the third half was to really, like, promote the players and to, like, look into them. And we had somebody show up in the chat. So 2 players, for me, stood out that I didn't know going into the tour. One of them we had on the show, Luan. He stood out to me. But the second one was Stanley Scandal. Look, I just have to say,
he was chat, by the way.
He was scandalous in that tour. He was just
I'm sure
everywhere.
He's never heard that
yeah,
before.
I'm sure he never had. I know, but look, tell us a little bit about Stanley. He's in the chat. Where's he from? He doesn't have his bio in yet, I don't think. Neither do you, Dante. We need the bio so we can know who you are. But tell us about Stanley.
Sharks, man.
So Stanley, this is a very interesting story. So he's scandalous. So this is why. He was like 17 years old playing in our men's team, and I had no idea. You had to be like 18 or 19 or something like that to play, like a couple seasons ago. And for whatever reason, he lied on his like, his bio, right? And I know he lied. He had to, because I was like, wait a second. You just graduated? You're going to school with my son at Ohio Wesleyan? He's like, yeah. Like, I'm only like 19. I'm like, I thought you were like 25, dude. Like, and just like the potential he has, you know what I mean? He's super young, and he can strike the ball like a monster, man. He hit a banger top 90 from almost just inside the half court. I was like, oh my God, that's an amazing strike, But this guy, he's full of surprises, He's been under my wing for about 2-3 seasons now, and this would be like, if we did it like the 4th season, he trusts me, man. We trust each other. That's one of the biggest things. I believe he's from Venezuela, and that South American blood runs deep in our team, and he fits right in. He fits the mold, and we're happy to have him. Very excited to have him as a part of CFA and Columbus Futsal. He's actually I believe he's interested in coaching, so he's going to be jumping in over the summer to help us coach and pass his knowledge on to the younger players, and that's huge. That tells you a lot about the person as well, So, like, if you think, like, he's about himself, he's not. He wants to spread the love, and those are the people I want to be around, So, like, Stanley, he's a great kid, man. He's a great kid, good person, and he's always willing to work hard for the team and wants to pass his knowledge. Like, you can't ask for more, So, heck of a player, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the part that really caught my eye. I mean, the goal's phenomenal, but it was his involvement just in the whole game, right? He had some really great assists, just his commitment to the defensive end too, like just all around. He's, when we talk about the best futsal players in FCS, he's somebody that I could put right in that category with having that impact on the game.
Yeah, he actually
Absolutely.
he jumped in the chat here and he said, What did he say? I got to scroll back because it's been a second. He said, "Let's play National Showcase." Haha, that's what he said. I know. So he's eager to play, and Gerard was talking about it before.
This is the player that I was thinking about.
Let's go, Sammy.
Right? Sammy Escovel. And they're going to be in the National Showcase.
Yeah.
And when you talk about as good or better,
Sammy?
as good or better, right? Stanley and Sammy, I want to see them on the court together. I want to see them going head to head.
I see what you're thinking. Okay.
I mean,
Okay,
look,
I'm with you.
you know,
Wow.
I like that matchup.
that's a matchup
I
right
think
there.
They might have seen each other once or twice before. Yeah. But those two, like
Ooh,
Sammy's a beast, man.
yeah.
Sammy, I give a lot of mad respect to Sammy, you know. He can strike with both feet, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I'll never forget Sammy. I gotta give him a shout out because one time he just did this little soda and scoop right over our captain, Marcelo. And I was like, dude, why'd you dive in? You know, he just reached for the ball wrong, and Sammy just like popped the ball over his head and volleyed it in the back of the net. And I was like, Sammy, calm down. That's abuse. That's not right.
Wow. That's crazy.
So Sammy, shout out to you, man. That was a golazo. Back in the day, I mean, I would love to see that matchup. Those two playing each other. I would just let them man mark, go ISO, go for it. The one person, hey, I'll say this: the one person I didn't really want to mark was Jeremy this weekend. And to be fair, can I say this? To be fair, he can shoot with both feet, but I know which way he's going. And I'll say this: the best game that we played probably over the weekend, the most entertaining match in my personal opinion, was against Lansing, because it was like more futsal versus futsal.
Yeah.
And Jeremy, he took the initiative to recognize that the court was a little bit too narrow, and he opened the court up a little wider, and that just made for a much better game. Give the players the space to create and make things happen. I loved it, and so I'm glad that he did that. You know, so yeah.
Well, that's cool. It's been really cool to hear about Columbus and the history and kind of how you guys got to where you were. You know, coming and playing in that Akron tour and winning the tour, and where you kind of hope to see where you guys head. You know, and the environment. And I know Gerard's super pumped. He wants to get him and his whole crew out there sometime. Last question. Do you have a final question for Dante?
I mean, I only get one.
Yeah, look at the time, man.
I know, it's already 10. All right, so
all night.
Yeah.
all right, look, Dante, I asked you many times, but look, Stanley's the one that put this in here. Are we going to see you in the National Showcase?
Unfortunately, we have a little bit too much going on at home. I wish we could be a part of it, but unfortunately, we're not going to be able to. We have our youth academy tryouts that weekend and things going on. So, you know, first, the kids come first. You know, we have to take care of, you know, the hand that feeds us, and, you know, the children, the families, you know, the players, they come first. So we will have something in store for them later on in this season, hopefully. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to, is like, you know, getting the men's team together again and hopefully coming into the season and being a part of that, you know. So hopefully they have something to see, something to aspire for, you know, later on. But as far as that National Showcase, I wish we could be there, man. I want to play against Olay so bad. But yeah, we owe them a game. I think they're, you know, recent games, they are one up on us. So but hey, we're coming for them. We'll be there. We'll be there soon enough. Don't you worry.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dante Garcia of Columbus Futsal, thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight, Dante.
Hey, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, you got it, man. Hey, on the other side of the break, we have a small segment at the end where we take a what did I call it at the beginning of the show? A gut check? No, it wasn't a gut check. Reality check. That's what it was. Reality check coming up on the other side of the break for the final two teams we haven't talked about yet, Columbus Futsal and Lansing City. So don't go anywhere.
Committing a crime so you can try to escape from prison. Bad idea. Go into the pod escape room to play an escape game with your friends. Great idea. Test your skill as an astronaut in outer space. Find Santa and save Christmas. Or take a vacation to an abandoned island. Just don't get stuck there. The Pod Escape Room. Learn more at thepodlansing.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Third Half podcast presented by Ally Marketing and the Pod Escape Room. Jared Kleppel, Gerard Ascani. If you missed our previous three segments, we just had three really awesome segments. We had Luan Tufani of Innovation City joining us first, and then we had a little breakdown, reality check of 4 out of the 6 teams from the FCS Tour Akron, and then we just got done speaking with Dante Garcia of Columbus Futsal. That was great fun, so make sure you go back and take a look at that. But now it's time for our final segment. It's 10:08 p.m. Eastern, and maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I don't know. We'll see how this goes. Time is sometimes a crazy thing around here when we get talking. But there's 2 teams that we want to take a reality check for after the Akron tour. Mm-hmm. And one of them is the team that we just got done talking to, member, coach, co-owner of, Dante Garcia. It's Columbus Futsal. What did you think about how their turnout was?
Yeah, so it was great watching them. I'd heard a lot about the history. And then even hearing Dante, look, if you haven't seen it yet, go back and watch that clip. What an amazing story of how they started and then where they are today. And it was really cool to have the innovation story and get to a little bit to know Luan Tufani and that journey and where they're at just beginning their team. And then you have a team like Columbus who's been around for a long time, but it's almost like they're just reconnecting with their team, right? And so as much as we have the beginnings for innovation, we have this renewal for Columbus. And so for me, I'm just really excited about what's to come for them. Yeah. They put this team together on short notice with only 3 training sessions.
Yeah.
And they looked really solid. They communicated well. They played together really well. And they had some really talented players. So the future looks bright for them.
Yeah, no, thinking about players, one of the players that stand out for me, I mean, you talked about Stanley Scandal. He had that crazy shot up to the I was going to say the rafters, but the rafters of the goal, top shelf, as Dante was mentioning. One of the players that really stuck out for me for them was Fernandez, was his last name, number 18. He was comfortable on the ball. He handled very well, made very minimal mistakes, seemed like he had good control of kind of how the flow of the game was going. Seemed to be a key piece of their journey to the final. What do you think were the key markers of their journey to get to the final? We'll talk about the final in a second, but what was like the key moment in their process of getting there?
So last year in the FCS, the thing that was most prevalent to me was the best teams make the extra pass. They don't take the early shot, they make the extra pass, and that's what Columbus did consistently. Consistently, they didn't take an early shot just to force it. They found the right opportunity, and then they made the extra pass and took an open shot. Yeah. And to see them continually do that throughout the day, like that's how they scored that first goal, which potentially is the fastest goal we've seen in FCS history, first 10 seconds of the match. But it came from an extra pass to create the goal. Yeah. And like that's what they did consistently all day. And so I thought that their movement on offense was really well. Their creativity was great. And so like somebody like Fernandez, he's really solid on the ball, but he's not a selfish player just creating shot. I mean, I know we did in the final watch him trying to get the shots late when they were up. But one of the things that they did was they really worked together well.
Yeah, and from the chat, also, that was the Arturo Fernandez and then Juan Bolanos as well.
Yeah, he was strong.
Yeah. And then, but we...
Barea, he was strong too, Augusto Barea.
Yeah. I think talking about Columbus and their journey, I think one player that I have to mention, I can't even remember his whole name.
Junior Camacho.
Oh,
Camacho.
You knew exactly.
Camacho was, look, we haven't even talked about him yet.
No, we haven't, but he was great.
Phenomenal.
He played really good.
Yeah, he played really good. He's hands down the best goalie of the tour, without a doubt.
Yeah,
he was the best goalie. Yeah, really strong.
He played good. And, I mean, it's goalkeepers make such a big difference on the court. Yeah. I mean, we saw some mistakes from both Lansing City and Jinga in goal. And I know in Innovation they had some weak goalkeeper play for some time as well. And it's just huge, especially in the shortened games, that like goals are so valuable in the shortened games and harder to come by, harder to get more of them. And so having a player like him, reminds me of having someone solid like Vicario in net, solid like Mena in net. Those are the type of players that it's reminiscent of. But I mean, I thought he played really well and was a really important piece to their journey.
Yeah, I mean, we said it many times throughout that day, the impact he was having on the matches. And in so many ways, that was really the difference. So I know a lot of those things we just talked about was the offensive flow, the creativity, all of that. Yeah. But Camacho, it can't be understated enough the impact that he had on the games.
So the two questions on that headline, will we see more this summer in the future in the FCS? So as of now, no showcase. I don't know about the last tour. That is a pretty further away thing in Maryland. And then as far as future in the FCS, I mean, it's very clear that Dante
it's a yes. It's just a win.
Yeah, that was his perspective. Yeah,
just win, and that is so encouraging to hear. And in so many ways, everything he talked about shows how aligned he is with really what we're trying to do here, what the league's trying to do, is to really promote the sport and the players and the culture. And so the fact that they want to be a part of it shows that there is that ROI, that return on investment for their time. Because it does. Like this is not a professional endeavor right now, and so it takes everybody's time and effort and money and resources to be able to come to the tournaments. Yeah. Like that's part of the problem with the National Showcase is it's a 3-day event. It's not just a singular day. So you need to come. You have to get hotel rooms because it's a long travel. So there's a lot of expenses involved, and as they can figure that out as a club, like that's really, at this point, it's just a logistical hurdle. Yeah. Like you saw the talent on the court. It's just figuring out the logistics. And that was the difference for a lot of the teams in FCS last year. That was our first season with the home and away structure where there's a lot of travel involved. Yeah. The logistics were oftentimes the most difficult challenge for the teams.
Yeah. Yeah, so Columbus Futsal, they come into the Akron tour. They are back on the scene for the moment, expressing interest in the future. But they come away with the tour championship. Yeah. for you, what's the most memorable moment about that final?
Oh, the most memorable moment of the final. So they go down 3 goals really quick, Innovation does, and Brandon Bolish recognizes that he needs to pull himself from the match. Like that, that was not the way you want to start the match, and that just really stood out to me of that moment of recognition, like, we need somebody else in goal.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be somebody else at this moment. And so as like devastating of a start as that was to the match, they played the rest of the way 3-3.
Mm.
So, like, they played them level the rest of the match. So that was a really pivotal moment for them. They couldn't overcome the 3-goal deficit.
Yeah.
But at least, because again, Innovation's a team that's developing, and like that was their first competitive time playing ever. And so the fact that the owner, operator, captain of the team, whatever, is like in that moment recognizing like me on the court is actually not what's best for the team. I need to come off. And that's what Dante Garcia shared earlier too, right? Was like wanting to make sure if he's on the court, it's the best thing for the team. Well, Brandon recognized that it wasn't.
Yeah.
Right? And that says a lot. That says a lot about his character, that he didn't just stay out there, because he could have.
Yeah.
And it could have, been a complete domination, but it ended up being really competitive the rest of the way, 3-3.
Yeah, it is very interesting. I do think that another perspective on that as well is that when the game is 3-0, the game changes. And so it's like to play even the rest of the way, it's like, like that. It's kind of like at first glance, I'd say, that seems good. But it's like, I think you also have to realize that staring down 3 goals and being up 3 goals, you have to play very different. So just take it for what it's worth. I think it's worth mentioning. In the chat, we had someone mention just a little bit ago that the early goals against Lansing in the games that they played did a number on them. And that's the last thing that I wanted to talk about, Lansing City. Coming in, we mentioned this earlier, coming in to this tour, Lansing City, I think, was the best team on paper for what we knew and the players we knew. And Luan talked about it. And maybe had we known, like, who the players were that Columbus had and who they were bringing, like, maybe that evaluation would have changed. But, I think coming in, it was like, oh, yeah, they're bringing in Rafael Hernandez on loan from Chicago House, and he, is an incredible player. And then Diego Bobadilla, former U.S. national futsal team player. It's like, man, this team seems jam-packed. Yeah. And they ended up in 5th. What happened?
This is the part that's kind of interesting, because a lot of these teams don't have a lot of experience playing together. Innovation, this was their first time playing. And we heard it from Luan, we heard it from Dante, just about the difference of like some of the outdoor game and some people just getting together and just playing futsal if they have a background in futsal. Well, Lansing City has a deep history with futsal, where they're playing a very intricate offense, to where you can't just pick up players and throw them out there and it is just what it is, the way that other teams can when they're playing, And so to bring in 2 players, even though they're incredibly talented, there's a lot of nuance to that just because of the intricacies of the offense. And so there were so many passes that were just inches away from turning into opportunities and shots on goal. And I think that truly was the difference, was just the comfortability level with some of these players. So like somebody like Rafael Hernandez, I already made this statement, and I still stand by it, that he's going to lead the league in assists next year in FCS. And when I said that, it's because of his creative ability. He can score goals, which he did. He scored a lot. Yeah, he scored a lot of them. He scored 4.
I think all of them. Yeah, all of Lansing City's in the group stage, if I'm not mistaken.
So not all of them. He scored 3 in one match, and then 1 in the second. Actually, was it?
I don't remember. Yeah, but he scored a lot.
Yeah, I think it might have been all of them. So here's the thing, though. He stood out to me because of his creative ability. And for him to leave this tournament not having a single assist, it's like, well, why not? And that's why, because, he's not used to playing with these players. So, like, some of his passes didn't end up where, like somebody like Ishmael Gomez would have been on the end of a pass, but they weren't on the same page. Somebody like Vinny Da Silva would have been on the end of the pass, but they're not on the same page. And so, like, Bobadilla, one of the things you talked about with him, he's a U.S. men's national team player, but what has he been doing recently? Yeah. Like some of these Columbus players who are just coming back, Bobadilla didn't play to the level we would have expected out of a national player, right? Out of a national team player. So on paper, those are the three strongest players: Jeremy Kleppel, Bobadilla, Rafael Hernandez. But we didn't see them be the three best in the tournament.
Yeah, in the chat comment, felt like Lansing lost their matches more than their opponents won them. I would have to agree with this for the most part. I think really it's to me, I think the goalkeeper errors were the biggest part because it's like when kind of going back to the game changes when you're down 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you have the deflation, not only in the energy, but also the goals that are scored. It's like it's a big thing to try to come back, especially in the shortened game.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you talk about like the not as familiar, I think that plays some kind of a factor. I don't think it plays a huge factor, but I think it's a decent one. But it's kind of like on top of some of these things that they're those mistakes I think make a really big impact. I think there was for me, like Bobadilla, I felt like he had a lot of rust to knock off. I felt like maybe if they were like kind of as the day went on, he seemed to do better. But there was quite a few times where it was like he would lose the ball, would go out of bounds, and not be on target where he wanted to be. There were several times where it was like they were very close to kind of a chance, maybe making that extra pass, but like the last touch or two or the last pass wasn't where it needed to be, and I think that caused some troubles for them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's one of the things though that it is kind of challenging. So for most of last year in the FCS, we kind of said the same thing, that it wasn't that Lansing City was beat; they kind of gave it away. Like, at what point is that not the narrative? At what point we give
at the point when the goalkeepers don't give away goals? That's when it changes.
So it's just always mistakes. I mean, the mistakes happen.
Every time we've talked about the mistakes, it's like giving away easy goals.
But they only scored 3.
Right.
They only scored 3, and when you have 2 players that are head and shoulders above everyone else on the court, right? That's the part when I look at the team, I'm like, wow, Jeremy Kleppel, Rafael Hernandez, how do they not score 10 goals in every single game? Yeah.
I think another important consideration is, some players that they have had in the past they didn't have. I mean, their second line, Colter Reese was starting that line. He's a very young player that didn't, he got some minutes in the Lansing tour. He scored a game-winning goal, but he's like a starter on the second line, along with David Saltzman, Jack Fisher. They had a very young and small, second line. I know Max Keeney was around. I can't remember who the fourth player of their second line was.
Well, that was the fourth. Saltzman, Keeney,
I think Keeney came off
Colter,
the bench, though.
And
I thought there was one more. I might be wrong, but some experience, and just ability to experience in the terms of taking punches of the game, and someone like Josh Robertson not there, Trezor Crispane and physicality not there. So it's like they their second line I think was quite a bit weaker after than what have seen in some cases. But yeah, I mean it's for me overall it was disappointing to see. I thought there would be more, like you said. I thought maybe there would be a lot of goals between these two players, and it just wasn't quite there.
And that's why I go back to kind of just how many opportunities were so close to being goals, whether great saves by Willem, or just the pass was just a little bit off.
Yeah.
Right, just a little bit off. So, I think if you go back and watch the tape, there's easily in that game against Innovation 6-7 opportunities that were inches away from being a goal.
Yeah.
And to miss on that many opportunities that were really, really solid opportunities, and then you don't walk away with a goal.
Yeah.
It could have easily been a blowout in the other direction.
Yeah. So Lansing City coming into the tour kind of with higher expectations, I would say, and ending at fifth. I think it's I think we've said a lot about it. I think there's multiple factors to it. Yeah, you do mention Drew Barney. He was a part of that first squad. I think there's some for Lansing City, my outlook for them is I think there's a lot of youth on the team, and I think some problems that they have are just youth problems, and as players get older and mature, those things will sort out. They've had some clear troubles in the last year at the goalkeeper position, and I think those two are the majority of things. I think deal with that. That's my opinion.
We haven't really talked about Ethan Castaneda, but he was really solid in goal.
Yeah, he did
when
play well.
He came in. He did play well. I feel like that was some of the best goalkeeping we've seen out of him. And when you talk about that development that's happened, we've seen some, just some really tough, unfortunate mistakes from him, getting red cards in games.
Yeah.
And so for me, I think that's an encouraging takeaway.
Yeah. Well, that's how the FCS Tour Akron wraps out. Those 6 teams coming to compete, and it was a fun and a lot of futsal, 10 hours of futsal, maybe more. I can't remember how much it was. A lot of futsal. Good time. But that's where we're going to end it for tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in to the third half episode tonight. Jared Klepp with Gerard Escane, to everyone that watched and everyone that was joining as a guest. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your night. And on the horizon, what's upcoming next for FCS?
The National Showcase.
The National Showcase, July 11th through 13th. That's kind of the next big thing for the FCS, so circle that weekend on your calendar. We have some heavy hitters coming that weekend. Olay Futsal, I believe, Midwest United, Lansing City. There's a few more. I think they're on the website, but Capital Futsal is in there.
I'm so excited to see Olay back on the court.
Yeah, and Olay's going to be back on the court.
They are so fun to watch. And again, so we just talked about some of the developmental opportunities from Lansing City. One of the things that it's almost surprising to me, they play differently against Olay than against any other team. So as much as we have some of the developmental opportunities, they always show up for those games. So I'll be ready. That's a game I'll have circled on the calendar because Look, I love Olay. I love watching them play, but I want to see somebody beat them because I've never seen them lose. And not that I want them to lose, but, continue to raise the bar for what we expect and give them some more competition because they come in and they paint every town red, as Jair would say. Yeah. And we need to see some more competition from other teams stepping up. And that's why, hopefully we'll see Columbus do it one day, see these other teams come in and bring that competitive fire. Because I know Olay wants it. Olay wants to see that competition rise and people challenge them. And Lansing City, every time they played, has played them tight. And we will be seeing Chicago House as well and Shoreline debuting for the first time in the FCS. So they got something to look forward to. We did see, I did miss a comment from Stanley Scandal about Lansing. He felt like they were a bit unfortunate in the first game. They shot a lot but didn't go in. And that's another thing we haven't really talked about a lot is just the barrage of chances. And, maybe if the game is a full-length game, like maybe you have more opportunity for those to go in. But I already said once that we were done. Now we're actually done. So thank you so much for tuning into the third half. We'll see you guys sometime around the showcase. Maybe we got a third half before that, after that sometime. But we're going to be broadcasting that on FCS Live. So we got that to look forward to. So until then, thank you and good night.
Committing a crime so you can try to escape from prison. Bad idea. Going to the pod escape room to play an escape game with your friends. Great idea. Test your skill as an astronaut in outer space. Find Santa in Save Christmas. Or take a vacation to an abandoned island. Just don't get stuck there. The Pod Escape Room. Learn more at thepodlansing.com.